There is a specific kind of silence that happens when someone kisses you to practice and then, somewhere in the middle of it, stops practicing. I learned the exact sound of it on a Tuesday, in our kitchen, at 1 a.m, with a kettle going cold on the stove and my roommate's hands deciding, slowly, and then all at once, that they had forgotten what they were supposed to be rehearsing. She pulled back about an inch, not all the way, just far enough to look at me like she'd walked into a room and forgotten why. "That's enough practice," she said. Neither of us moved. My name is Wes Calloway, and I should tell you up front what I do for a living, because it's going to matter. I caption things. Freelance, late-night news, true crime documentaries, the occasional reality show I'm contractually forbidden from naming. I sit in a dark apartment with headphones on, and I turn other people's words into text that scrolls along the bottom of a screen. I am, professionally, a man who is very good at making sure everyone gets to read exactly what was said. The irony of my entire romantic life is that I have never once in 32 years managed to say the thing I actually meant out loud, in time, to the person it was about. I put other people's confessions on the record for money. My own I keep off the books. Joss is the exception to the dark apartment loneliness, and she became the exception by accident, which is the only way anything good has ever happened to me. We met because a landlord double booked a 2-bedroom. I'd signed for it. She'd signed for it. We both showed up on the same Saturday with our boxes and our certainty, stood in the empty living room glaring at each other while the landlord apologized into his phone. And after 20 minutes of escalating standoff, Joss looked at the rent number, looked at me and said, "Okay, listen, you don't look like a man who's going to murder me, and I cannot afford this place alone. So either we both walk away and lose our deposits, or you stop standing like that and help me carry a couch." I helped her carry the couch. That was 2 years ago. We never moved out. What we built in those 2 years was the kind of thing nobody has a clean word for. Not dating. Not siblings, exactly, though we bickered like it. Something closer to two people who'd been quietly alone for a long time, agreeing to be quietly alone in the same apartment, which turns out to be a completely different thing. She knew I couldn't sleep without the captions still scrolling in my head, so she learned to find me on the couch at 3 a.m. and not make it weird. I knew she talked to the kettle when she thought no one was listening. We had a system. We had a rhythm. We had, I told myself with great discipline, absolutely nothing going on. You should know about the highlighter, because the highlighter is how I read her before I let myself read her. Joss did community theater, real, unpaid, deeply serious community theater, and she carried her current script everywhere, dog-eared and warped, marked up in yellow. The highlighter was always with her, and she had to tell. When she was nervous about something, she'd uncap it and recap it. Click, 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 without writing a single word. I'd hear it from across the apartment. After a while, I could tell her mood from the rhythm of a pen cap. That's a dangerous amount of attention to be paying to someone you've decided you feel nothing about. I knew that. I kept paying it anyway. The whole thing cracked open because of a play. She got cast as the lead in a small spring production, a real part, the kind she'd been waiting years for, and she came home glowing about it, did a victory lap around the kitchen island, made me toast a frankly insane amount of bread in celebration. And then, 3 days into rehearsals, she went quiet in a way I'd learned to notice. The pen cap was working overtime. Click, click, click. It came out over cold tea on a Tuesday night. There was a kiss in the play. A real 1-second act, and her scene partner was perfectly nice and entirely a stranger. And Joss, who could weep on cue, who could deliver a monologue that made a folding chair audience forget how to breathe, was terrified of freezing up on stage in front of 200 people. "I haven't kissed anyone in 2 years," she said to the T, not to me. "What if I just stand there? What if I forget how it goes?" "It's not choreography," I said. "You don't forget how it goes. You forget how everything goes if you don't do it for long enough," she said, and there was something underneath that I chose, in the moment, not to hear. Then she looked up at me, and the pen cap went still in her hand. "Let me just practice," she said. "Once, so I don't freeze. You're safe, it doesn't mean anything, it's just blocking. It's just so my body remembers the shape of it." She said it fast, like she had to get the whole sentence out before she lost her nerve, and she capped the highlighter and set it down too hard on the counter. Friends do this. It's basically a trust exercise. People do trust exercises. I have poor survival instincts around Joss specifically, and I have never once in 2 years been able to say no to her when she said please with her eyes instead of her mouth. "Okay," I said. "For the play." "For the play," she agreed, far too quickly. The first one was, genuinely, practice, brief, careful, both of us holding ourselves at a respectful distance like two people diffusing something. She pulled back and laughed and said, "See? Mechanical, easy, thank you." And I said something dry about being honored to serve the arts. And we both pretended my pulse wasn't doing anything unusual. The second one was less mechanical. I'm not going to pretend I know which kiss it was, where the practice stopped being practice. Somewhere in there the counting fell apart for both of us. But there was a moment, a clear one, where her hand came up and rested flat against my chest, not pushing me away the way a scene partner would, just resting there like it had found the place it meant to be. And the kettle went cold on the stove, and the apartment did that 1 a.m. thing where the rest of the world stops existing, and she stopped. She pulled back an inch, looked at me like she'd walked into a room and forgotten why. "That's enough practice," she said. Neither of us moved. I told myself, lying awake that night with the caption scrolling uselessly behind my eyes, that it meant nothing. She was an actor. Actors are physical, demonstrative, comfortable with closeness the rest of us have to schedule a week in advance. It was a technique thing. It was a trust exercise. She'd said the words herself. It doesn't mean anything. And who was I to argue with the woman who defined the terms? I built a very sturdy case for nothing having happened. I'm good at putting words on the record. I'm even better at editing them out. The case did not survive the week, because Joss kept finding reasons to rehearse. The blocking needed work, she said. The angle was wrong, she said. The director wanted the second act kiss to feel more reluctant, and she couldn't find reluctant. So could we run it again, just to find reluctant? We ran it many times. We never found reluctant. We found a lot of other things. The evidence piled up the way it does when you finally let yourself count it. There was the night she fell asleep on the couch during one of my late shifts, and I caught myself reading the captions out loud, quietly, just so the apartment would have my voice in it, and woke later to find she'd moved closer in her sleep, her head against my shoulder. Her script slid to the floor. There was her sister, on speakerphone saying, "And how's your roommate, the one you never shut up about?" And Joss lunging for the phone so fast she knocked the highlighter off the counter. There was the contact in my phone. It had said Joss, roommate for 2 years. I noticed one night that I'd quietly deleted the second word, and I had no memory of doing it, which felt like the kind of confession you make to yourself before you're brave enough to make it to anyone else. And there was the line. She was running her second act monologue out loud in the kitchen. The one where her character finally admits she's been in love with the wrong safe person the whole time, and she got to a line about how the most frightening thing isn't loving someone. It's realizing they were standing close enough to touch the entire time, and you talked yourself out of it. She delivered it perfectly. And then she stopped. She didn't look up from the script. Her thumb found the highlighter cap. "Click, that's a good line," I said, "because I am a coward who hides behind other people's words." "It's a good line," she agreed very quietly, and did not look at me, and the apartment held still. We both knew. That was the thing. For about a week after that, we both knew, and neither of us said it. And the not saying it became its own weather system in the apartment, a pressure that built behind every ordinary sentence. We were excruciatingly polite. We passed each other the milk like diplomats. I have never been so careful with anyone in my life. And being that careful is just love with worse posture. It broke on a Thursday, the night before her opening. And it broke because for once I decided to be the one who held the door open instead of the one who hid behind it. She came home wired and terrified from the final dress rehearsal, dropped her bag, paced the kitchen, uncapped the highlighter, capped it, click, click, click. And I put down my headphones and said the thing I'd rehearsed in the dark for a week, except I said it to give her an out, not to corner her. "You don't have to keep finding reasons," I said. "The blocking's fine. It's been fine for a while. So if you want to stop practicing, we stop. And tomorrow you go up there and you're going to be incredible, and nothing has to change here. We can leave it exactly where it is. I mean that. The door's open. You can walk through it, and we never talk about this again." She went still, not dramatically, just still. Then she said the first true thing, and she said it too fast, so fast that I knew it had been sitting behind her teeth for weeks, waiting for a night exactly this loud, with everything we weren't saying. "I don't want the door," she said. I never wanted the door. I wanted an excuse, because I was scared that if I just kissed you for no reason at all, you'd be kind about it, and we'd lose the apartment, and I'd lose the only person who knows I talk to the kettle. She heard it after she said it. I watched her hear it. The highlighter slipped out of her hand and rolled off the counter, and neither of us went after it. There was never a play I needed help with, Wes. I mean, there's a play. But I didn't need help. "I know," I said. "You know?" "I caption things for a living," I said. "I'm very good at hearing what people actually mean. I've heard what you meant for about 3 weeks. I just didn't think I was allowed to say it back." "Why not?" she said, almost a whisper. "Because you said it didn't mean anything," I said. "And you set the terms, and I have a very stupid amount of respect for the terms." She made a sound that was half a laugh and half something that had been waiting a long time to get out. "Forget the terms," she said. "The terms were a coward's terms. I'm withdrawing the terms." And then I crossed the kitchen and kissed her. And this time I started it. And I started it slowly and on purpose. Because the first time I kissed Joss, meaning it, I wanted there to be no ambiguity about whether it was practice. There wasn't. Her hand came up to my chest again, to the same place it had found that first Tuesday, the place I now understood it had been trying to get to for 2 years, and the kettle was cold, and the apartment did its 1A. Trick of erasing the world, and nobody pulled back an inch. Nobody said that's enough. When we finally stopped, much later, foreheads together, both of us slightly stunned, she said, "I'm going to be terrible on stage tomorrow. I've forgotten how to be reluctant entirely." "You found reluctant for weeks," I said. "You were saving it for the wrong scene." She opened the show the next night, and she was not terrible. She was the best she'd ever been, and during the second act kiss I sat in the third row of a folding chair audience and felt absolutely nothing threatening at all. Because I knew exactly where she was coming home to, and exactly who she'd be talking to the kettle about. 3 months later, she officially moved her things into my room, which was a formality, since most of them had migrated there already. And the second bedroom became an office where I caption late into the night, and she runs lines. And sometimes, the two of us are awake at 3 a.m., in separate rooms hearing each other through the wall and not minding at all. The contact in my phone just says her name now. I never re-added the word. She was never really the roommate. She was the reason I stopped being able to sleep without someone else's voice in the room. A year after that, I learned that she steals my toast directly off my plate while making sustained, defiant eye contact, and that she overthinks silence almost as badly as I do, so that we'll sometimes catch each other doing it across the apartment and have to laugh. Nothing about us had changed. We still bickered like the day we fought over the couch. The highlighter still clicked when she was nervous. Except now, when it clicked, I knew to come find her, and that knowing was the whole difference between 2 years ago and now. Years later, when people ask how we got together, and they ask, because we were roommates who got double booked by a landlord, is a story that does a lot of work at a dinner party. Joss tells it her way, and I tell it mine. She says she needed to practice a stage kiss and pick the safest possible person, and the plan backfired catastrophically and wonderfully. I say I'd been quietly cataloging the rhythm of a pen cap for 2 years and calling it nothing. We're both right. That's the thing nobody warns you about how two people find each other. Sometimes the truth is too big to say straight, so you borrow a script. You call it practice. You call it blocking, a trust exercise, a favor for a friend, anything but the actual size of the thing, and then one night, in a kitchen, with the kettle going cold, your hands forget what they were pretending to rehearse and the truth just walks out wearing the costume you gave it. Nothing important had appeared overnight. It had simply stopped hiding behind a play. So before you go, I want to know 2 things, and I read every answer in the comments. The small one. Have you ever called something just practice? A kiss, a text, a favor? Because the real word for it was too frightening to say out loud. And the bigger one, the one I think about during every late shift, how many people are someone's whole quiet 3 a.m. and have simply never been told? If this one found a soft place in you the way it found one in me, stay a while, subscribe, and I'll tell you the next one.